Captain Lee Dongwu stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the large window. The Brave Dawn was a human exploration vessel, not very big compared to the massive alien ships around it. But it was fast and strong, and Lee loved it like family. "Captain, we're getting new orders from Federation Command," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Park So-young. She was young but smart, one of the best at understanding alien languages that Lee had ever seen. Lee walked over to her station. "What do they want now?" Park's face looked worried as she read the message. "Sir, they're ordering all Federation ships to retreat to the galactic core immediately. Something called a void surge is coming from the outer rim." Lee frowned. The outer rim was where many smaller, less advanced alien species lived. "What about the planets out there? What about the people?" "The message says—" Park paused, looking sick. "It says the outer rim species are non-essential to galactic security and will be left behind." Lee felt anger building in his chest. He had joined the Galactic Federation because humans believed it stood for protecting all life. But now they were abandoning entire worlds full of living beings just because those beings didn't have big spaceships or powerful weapons. "Get me Ambassador Choi on the secure channel," Lee ordered. A few minutes later, the face of Ambassador Choi Hyun-sik appeared on the screen. He looked tired and angry. Behind him, Lee could see the chaos of the Federation Council chambers. "Lee, I can guess why you're calling," Choi said. "I've been fighting this decision for hours. The elder species won't listen. They say these primitive species are acceptable losses." "How many worlds are we talking about?" Lee asked. 17 confirmed worlds with intelligent life. Maybe more. The Villani alone have over 2 million people on their home planet. Choi's voice was bitter. 2 million artists and poets and dreamers, and the Federation calls them non-essential. Lee looked around his bridge. His crew was listening, and he could see the same anger in their eyes that he felt. These were good people, who had joined Starfleet to explore and protect, not to abandon innocent aliens. "What's this void surge exactly?" asked Dr. Nam Yoon-ji, the ship's medical officer. She had worked with many alien species and cared deeply about all forms of life. Choi shook his head. "The Federation scientists say it's some kind of space distortion that makes hyperspace travel impossible. It's moving slowly but steadily toward the galactic core. They estimate it will reach the outer rim worlds in about 6 months. 6 months, Lee repeated. That's enough time to evacuate. Not according to the logistics reports, Choi said sadly. The Federation says it would take too many ships and too many resources. They've decided to cut their losses and save the EA. Important species. Lee felt his hands clench into fists. And what do they consider important? Species with advanced technology, species with large fleets, species with economic or military value. Choi's voice was full of disgust. In other words, not the Villani artists, or the Delph farmers, or the Kithan miners. On the bridge, Lee could hear his crew talking quietly among themselves. Lieutenant Yoon Seok-jin, his chief engineer, spoke up. Captain, we could modify our cargo holds. Squeeze in maybe 500 refugees if we strip out non-essential systems. 500 out of millions, Lee said quietly. But then he thought about it more. What if we weren't the only ship? Ambassador Choi raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking, Lee? How many human ships are in this sector right now? Park checked her computers. 43 ships, sir. Mixed fleet, exploration, cargo, and a few military vessels. Lee made a decision that would change everything. Choi, tell the Federation Council that humanity formally protests this abandonment. Tell them we consider it a betrayal of everything the Federation claims to stand for. I'll try, but they won't listen. I know, but I want it on record. Lee took a deep breath. And then tell Fleet Admiral Kim that I'm requesting permission to organize a voluntary rescue mission. Choi's eyes went wide. Lee, that could be considered mutiny. The Federation has given direct orders to retreat. Then let them court-martial me. I didn't join Starfleet to abandon innocent people. Dr. Nam walked over to Lee. Captain, I've studied Villani physiology. They're similar enough to humans that our medical supplies would work on them. And they're peaceful, no threat to anyone. Engineer Yoon nodded. Sir, I can have modifications ready in 2 days. We could turn cargo ships into refugee transports. Lee looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. These people had followed him across the galaxy, trusted him with their lives. Now he was asking them to risk everything, for strangers. "I won't order anyone to come with me," he said finally. "This has to be voluntary. Anyone who wants to follow Federation orders and retreat to the core can do so with no shame." Lieutenant Parks stood up. "Sir, respectfully shut up. Where you go, we go." The rest of the bridge crew nodded agreement. Lee felt pride swell in his chest. This was why he loved being human. They never abandoned people who needed help. 2 hours. Later, Lee's ship was moving toward the outer rim. Behind him, the great Federation fleet was jumping to hyperspace, fleeing toward the galactic core. But Lee wasn't alone. 37 other human ships had broken formation to follow him. "Captain, I'm getting a message from Fleet Admiral Kim," Park reported. Kim's weathered face appeared on screen. He looked grim, but not angry. "Lee, what you're doing goes against direct Federation orders." "Yes, sir, I know." "Good. Because officially, I have to order you to return to the fleet immediately." Kim paused. "Unofficially, I'm proud of you. The Federation may have forgotten what honor means, but humanity hasn't." "Sir?" "I'm splitting our fleet, Lee. Half will go to the core as ordered. Half will quietly supply your rescue mission with everything you need. Supplies, fuel, medical equipment. Whatever it takes." Lee felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Admiral." "Don't thank me yet. What you're attempting is impossible. 17 worlds, 43 ships, millions of lives. The math doesn't work. Then we'll make it work, sir." Kim smiled for the first time. "That's the most human thing I've heard all day. Good luck, Captain. Bring our new friends home." 3 days later, the human rescue fleet reached Valen Prime. The planet was beautiful, purple skies and crystal cities that caught the light like jewels. But long-range sensors were already detecting the first effects of the void surge. "Captain, I'm reading massive population centers," reported Dr. Nam. "The Vellani seem to live in harmony with their environment. No pollution, no strip mining, just art and music and beauty." Lee looked at the peaceful world below. In a few months, the void surge would make it impossible for anyone to leave. The Federation had written off these people as non-essential, but Lee saw a world full of souls who deserved to live. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. "This is Captain Lee Dongwu of the human vessel Brave Dawn. We're not here to conquer or judge. We're here to help. If you'll trust us, we'll find a way to save you." The response came in beautiful musical tones that Park's computers translated. Why would strangers risk themselves for us? Lee thought about that question. Why were humans willing to risk everything for people they'd never met? Maybe it was because they remembered what it felt like to be alone in the universe. Maybe it was because they believed every life had value. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. Because no one should face the dark alone. And with those words, the greatest rescue mission in galactic history began. The first meeting with the Vellani did not go well. When the human ships approached their beautiful crystal cities, the aliens were terrified. They had never seen warships before, and to them, the human vessels looked like instruments of destruction. Commander Han Ji-woo watched from the bridge of her ship, the Resilient Hope, as Vellani craft circled them nervously. The alien ships looked more like works of art than vehicles, graceful curves and crystalline surfaces that reflected light in rainbow patterns. "They're beautiful," whispered her navigator, Lieutenant Moon Bo-ra. "How could anyone abandon them?" Dr. Park So-young had transferred to the command ship to help with first contact. She was working frantically with her computers, trying to understand the musical language the Vellani used. "I think I'm getting something, Captain Lee," she called, over the communication link. "Their language is based on harmonic frequencies. Each tone carries multiple meanings." Captain Lee's voice came back over the radio. "Can you tell them we're here to help?" "I'm trying, but they keep broadcasting what sounds like surrender messages. I think they believe we're here to conquer them." Down on the planet's surface, the Vellani were indeed preparing for the worst. They were a peaceful people who had never developed weapons of war. Their entire civilization was built around art, music, and harmony with nature. The appearance of alien warships could only mean one thing in their minds: invasion. But slowly, Dr. Park began to make progress. The breakthrough came when she realized that Volani communication wasn't just about words. It was about emotional resonance. She began broadcasting simple mathematical concepts mixed with what she hoped were peaceful musical tones. "Captain, I think I'm getting through," she reported excitedly. "They're responding with curiosity instead of fear." The first face-to-face meeting took place in a beautiful garden on Velen Prime. The Volani who came to meet them looked like living crystals, tall, graceful beings whose skin caught and reflected light in amazing patterns. Their leader, who translated roughly as Song of Morning Light, spoke in tones that made the air itself seem to shimmer. Dr. Park translated as best she could. "He's asking why we came. He says the Council of Stars, that's the Federation, told them they were being abandoned because they weren't important enough to save." Lee felt anger burn in his chest again. "Tell him that every life is important. Tell him we came because it was right." The translation took several minutes, with Dr. Park playing different musical combinations until the meaning came across. When Song of Morning Light finally understood, his crystalline features shifted in what Dr. Park thought might be surprise. "He wants to know what we want in return," she translated. "Nothing," Lee said firmly. "We want nothing except to help them survive." This concept seemed to break the Volani leader's understanding. His people had been told by the Federation that in the galaxy, nothing was free. Everything had a price, usually paid by the weak to the strong. But as the days passed and the humans began working to help instead of demanding tribute, the Volani began to understand that these strange aliens were different. The humans shared their food, offered medical help, and most importantly, listened to Volani music and art with genuine appreciation. Engineer Yoon Seok Jin was working around the clock to solve the evacuation problem. The human ships simply couldn't carry enough people. Even if they stripped out everything non-essential, they might save 50,000 Volani. But there were over 2 million on the planet. "We need a different approach," he told Captain Lee during one of their planning meetings. "Instead of taking them to safety, what if we bring safety to them?" "What do you mean?" Yoon pulled up holographic displays showing his designs. "Mobile. Shield generators. We take our ship deflector technology and scale it up. Create protective bubbles around their cities that can resist the void surge effects." Dr. Nam studied the plans. "It might work for some effects. But what about atmospheric disruption? The surge could poison their air or boil their oceans." "Atmospheric processors," Yoon replied. "We build them into the shield generators. Self-contained. Life support for entire cities." Commander Han frowned at the technical specifications. "Yoon, the power requirements alone would drain our ship reactors in days. And that's just for one city." "Then we don't use ship reactors," Yoon said with a grin. "We build bigger ones. I'm talking about mobile power stations. Essentially small artificial suns contained in magnetic bottles. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had ever attempted. They would need to cannibalize their own ships, trade with alien species for exotic materials, and push their technology far beyond safe limits. But as they worked, help came from unexpected sources. 3 alien species quietly began supporting the human rescue mission, despite Federation orders to stay away. The first were the Kithara, beings made of pure energy who lived in the space between stars. They were fascinated by human determination, and began sharing power generation technology that could make Yoon's shield generators actually work. The second were the Borak, a warrior species that looked like living rock. They had honor codes that reminded them of humans, and they began sending ships loaded with raw materials and offering their own engineering expertise. The third were the Shimari, gentle telepathic aliens who looked like walking flowers. They helped Dr. Park communicate with not just the Volani, but with the other endangered species on nearby worlds. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Park during one of their daily briefings, "long-range sensors are detecting intelligent life on 16 more worlds in the Void Surge's path. The Delph water farmers, the Kithan underground miners, the Zephyrian cloud dancers. All of them are going to be trapped when the surge hits." Lee looked at the star charts showing the threatened worlds. 17 planets, millions of lives, and only 43 human ships to save them all. The mathematics were impossible. "How long do we have?" he asked. "The surge is moving faster than Federation estimates," reported Dr. Nam. 4 months, maybe 5. Commander Han studied the tactical displays. Even with the new shield technology, we can't protect 17 whole worlds. We'd need hundreds of generators, thousands of power cores. Then we make them, Lee said quietly. We strip every ship down to the hull if we have to. We build what we need from scratch. Sir, Lieutenant Moon spoke up hesitantly. The Federation is calling our actions illegal. They're threatening to send ships to stop us. Lee had been expecting this. The Federation couldn't allow the precedent of member species ignoring direct orders, even for humanitarian reasons. Any word from Admiral Kim? Yes, sir. He says he's doing what he can, but political pressure is mounting. Some Federation Council members are calling for our ships to be declared rogue vessels. That night, Lee stood alone on his bridge, looking out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the lights of Valani cities, millions of beings going about their lives, creating art and music and beauty, unaware that their government had already written them off as acceptable losses. His communication officer signaled an incoming message. Captain, it's from Admiral Kim. Priority encryption. Kim's face appeared on the screen, and he looked grim. Lee, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that the human government has decided to officially support your mission. We're calling it a humanitarian intervention. And the bad news? The Federation is sending Executor Vrextal with a battle fleet to bring you back. He has authority to use force if necessary. Lee felt his stomach drop. Vrextal was known throughout the galaxy as a cold, efficient admiral who followed orders without question. If he was coming, the Federation was serious about stopping the rescue mission. How long do we have? 2 weeks, maybe less. Vrextal doesn't waste time. Lee looked out at the Valani cities again. 2 weeks to save millions of lives. With a Federation battle fleet coming to stop them, the odds were impossible, but Lee smiled. Impossible odds were what humans did best. Admiral, tell Executor Vrextal he's welcome to try and stop us. But we're not abandoning these people. I was hoping you'd say that, Kim replied. Because I'm bringing the rest of the human fleet to help you. If the Federation wants a fight, they'll get one. As Kim's image faded, Lee turned to his crew. They had heard everything, and he could see determination on every face. You heard the Admiral. We have 2 weeks to do the impossible. He paused, looking at each of them. Anyone want to place bets on whether humans can pull off another miracle? Engineer Yoon grinned. Sir, I never bet against human stubbornness. Dr. Park nodded agreement. Besides, we've got new friends helping us now. The Valani crystal technology could enhance our shields beyond anything we imagined. Commander Han cracked her knuckles. A Federation battle fleet? Sounds like fun. We'll show them what happens when humans get protective of their friends. Outside the windows, the first prototype shield generator powered up around a Valani city. The energy field shimmered like a soap bubble, but sensors confirmed it was working. 1 city protected, hundreds more to go. Lee felt pride swell in his chest. This was what humanity was meant for. Standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves, facing impossible odds with nothing but determination and the refusal to give up. The Federation might be coming to stop them, but they had forgotten something important about humans. Once humans decided to protect someone, Dr. Bei Minho stared at the quantum readings for the 100th time, hoping they would somehow make sense. He was the fleet's best physicist, but what he was seeing defied everything he thought he knew about space and time. Captain Lee, you need to see this, he called over the communication link. His hands were shaking as he transferred the data to the main screen. Lee hurried to the science station, followed by Dr. Park and Engineer Yoon. Around them, the Brave. Dawn hummed with activity as crew members worked frantically to build more shield generators. What am I looking at, Bay? Lee asked. Sir, I've been studying the void surge more closely. This isn't a natural phenomenon. Bay pointed to specific readings on his instruments. Look at these energy patterns. They're too organized, too purposeful. This is a weapon. Dr. Park frowned at the data. A weapon? But who would create something that destroys entire star systems? That's what I've been trying to figure out. I went through the Federation historical archives, looking for anything similar. Bay pulled up ancient records. There are legends about something called the Devourers, an ancient race that supposedly existed millions of years ago. Most scientists think they're just myths. Engineer Yoon studied the energy readings. If this is artificial, then someone is controlling it. Can we stop it? I don't know. But I do know the Federation leadership has been lying to us. Their science division has these same readings. They know this is a weapon, but they're pretending it's a natural disaster. Lee felt cold anger settle in his stomach. They know someone is attacking the galaxy, and they're still abandoning the Outer Rim worlds? It gets worse, Bay continued. I think they're using the Outer Rim as a sacrifice zone. Let the weapon consume the unimportant worlds while they gather their strength in the core. Before Lee could respond, Lieutenant Park called out from her station. Captain, we're getting a priority message from the Villani. They say 3 more ships just arrived in system. Lee looked at the tactical display. 3 sleek vessels had just dropped out of hyperspace, but they weren't human designs. Can you identify them? Yes, sir. They're registering as independent vessels. 1 Kithara energy ship, 1 Borak heavy transport, and... Captain, the 3rd ship is registering as Federation, but it's broadcasting a human identification code. Lee frowned. Put them on screen. The face that appeared was that of Captain Oh Soo-jin, formerly a Federation liaison officer assigned to the human fleet. She looked determined, but nervous. Captain Lee, requesting permission to join your rescue mission. Captain Oh, you're still. Federation military, what are you doing here? I was, sir. I resigned my commission an hour ago. The Federation brass received a full briefing about the Devourer weapon yesterday. When they decided to maintain the abandonment policy anyway, I couldn't be part of that organization anymore. Lee felt a spark of hope. If Federation officers were defecting to join them, maybe they weren't as alone as he'd thought. Permission granted, Captain. What intelligence can you share? Everything I know, sir. Ship deployments, supply routes, tactical protocols. But more importantly, I know how to contact other Federation officers who are disgusted with current policy. You might be surprised how many of us still believe in protecting innocent life. Over the next week, the human rescue fleet transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The Kithara shared energy manipulation technology that made the shield generators 10 times more efficient. The Borak provided massive amounts of raw materials and their own engineering expertise. Most surprising of all, dozens of individual Federation officers and civilian ships began quietly joining the mission. Engineer Yoon was in heaven. With access to alien technology and unlimited resources, he began creating devices that shouldn't have been possible. Captain, look at this, he said excitedly, showing off his latest creation. It's an ARC ship, a completely self-contained ecosystem that can support 10,000 beings indefinitely. The ARC ship was a marvel of hybrid engineering. Human life support systems merged with Kithara energy matrices and Borak structural materials. Villani crystal technology enhanced every system, making the whole ship resonate with harmonic frequencies. That actually improved efficiency. How many can we build? Lee asked. With our current resources? Maybe 20. That's still not enough for all 17 worlds, but it's a start. Dr. Nam had been working with the Shamari telepaths to catalog the different alien species they needed to save. Captain, each species has different environmental needs. The Delph need high humidity and specific water chemistry. The Kithan require underground conditions with low light. The Zephyrians are used to living in gas giant atmospheres. Can the ARC ships be modified for different species? That's the beautiful part, Yoon replied. The Villani crystal technology is adaptive. Each ARC ship can reconfigure itself based on the needs of its inhabitants. One ship could carry a mixed population and provide the right environment for each group. But even as their capabilities grew, so did the opposition. Federation news broadcasts were calling the human fleet dangerous rogue elements and warning other species not to provide assistance. Several alien governments that had initially shown sympathy began withdrawing support under political pressure. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching, reported Lieutenant Moon. 27 ships under Federation command, led by Executor Vrextal. Lee had been expecting this confrontation, but seeing it on sensors made it real. Vrextal commanded some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, and he had a reputation for completing missions regardless of collateral damage. How long until they arrive? 18 hours, sir. Lee called a meeting of all ship captains in the rescue fleet. The conference room was crowded with humans and aliens working together, something that would have been impossible just weeks ago. "Friends," Lee began, "we all knew this moment would come. The Federation is sending their best enforcer to stop us. We can run, or we can make our stand here." Captain O leaned forward. "Sir, I know Vrextal's tactics. He'll demand immediate surrender and threaten to destroy any ship that resists. He's not bluffing. He has authority to use lethal force." Commander Han cracked her knuckles. "Let him come. We've got advantages he doesn't know about." "What do you mean?" asked Song of Morning Light, the Vellani leader who had become an unexpected tactical advisor. "Unity," replied Dr. Park. "Vrextal commands through fear and strict hierarchy. His crews follow orders but don't think for themselves. We're a mix of species working together because we want to, not because we have to." The Borak captain, Strength of Mountain Stone, rumbled agreement. "In battle, warriors who fight for honor are stronger than those who fight from duty alone." Engineer Yoon brought up holographic displays showing their fleet composition. "We've also got technological advantages. Our shield technology is more advanced than standard Federation equipment, thanks to Vellani crystals, and our arc ships are faster and more maneuverable than anything in their fleet." But the biggest advantage came from an unexpected source. Captain Kang Woo-young, formerly the Federation's best fighter pilot before joining the rescue mission, had been training mixed squadrons of human and alien pilots. "Sir, conventional tactics won't work against Vrextal," Kang reported, "but we're not using conventional tactics. Our pilots think differently. Humans provide innovation, Kithara provide energy manipulation, Borak provide raw courage, and Shamari provide telepathic coordination. Vrextal has never faced anything like us." As the Federation fleet approached, the rescued alien populations on the protected worlds watched anxiously. They understood that their new human friends were about to risk everything to defend them. The Vellani began broadcasting complex musical compositions that somehow strengthened the shield generators around their cities. The Delph contributed their knowledge of hydrodynamics to improve ship designs. Even the shy Kithan miners emerged from their underground cities to offer rare metals that made weapons more effective. "Captain," Dr. Bay called from his science station, "I'm detecting some kind of harmonic resonance between all our different technologies. It's like they're amplifying each other." "What does that mean?" "I'm not sure, but our power output is 30% higher than it should be. It's as if the different alien technologies want to work together." 18 hours later, Executor Vrextal's fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Federation ships were sleek and powerful, designed to intimidate and destroy. Vrextal himself was a tall, cold-eyed alien who viewed emotion as weakness and compassion as dangerous sentiment. His message came immediately. "Human vessels, you are in violation of direct Federation orders. You will cease your illegal activities and return to the Galactic Core immediately or face the consequences." Lee stood on his bridge, surrounded by his diverse crew of humans and aliens. Behind him, the rescued worlds glowed with the soft light of protective shields. "Executor Vrextal, we are conducting a humanitarian rescue mission. These people need our help." "These beings are expendable resources," Vrextal replied coldly. "The Federation has determined that their loss is acceptable for the greater good. You will comply, or I will enforce compliance." Lee looked around his bridge. Dr. Park was ready at communications, coordinating with alien allies. Engineer Yoon was... The battle against Executor Vrextal's fleet lasted 3 days, and when it was over, something remarkable had happened. The mixed human-alien fleet had not just survived, they had won a victory that no one thought possible. Council leader Shin Da-Yun stood in the main hall of Haven Station, looking out at the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Haven had started as a collection of linked ships protecting refugee populations, but it had grown into something unprecedented. A mobile city where dozens of species lived and worked together as equals. "The vote is unanimous," she announced to the assembled representatives. "Haven officially declares itself an independent sanctuary for all beings seeking refuge from oppression." The hall erupted in a mixture of sounds: human cheers, Vellani musical tones, Borak roars of approval, and the gentle chiming of Shimari telepathic joy. In just 2 months, these different species had learned to understand each other not just in language but in purpose. But their victory celebration was interrupted by urgent news. Dr. Bay rushed into the hall, his face pale with fear. Council, Leader, Captain Lee, you need to see this immediately. They followed him to the Science Center, where long-range sensors were displaying something that chilled everyone's blood. Massive shapes were emerging from dark space beyond the galaxy's edge, ships so large they dwarfed anything the Federation had ever built. The Devourers, Bay whispered. They're real, and they're coming. Captain Lee studied the sensor readings. The ships appeared to be made of some kind of living metal that absorbed energy and grew stronger. Their very presence seemed to twist space around them. How many? Hundreds, maybe thousands. And Captain, these aren't just ships. They're ecosystem. Destroyers. Wherever they go, they consume everything. Matter, energy, even life itself. Communications Officer Lim Ga-young intercepted a transmission from the retreating Federation fleet. Executor Vrextal's final message was playing on all frequencies. You've doomed us all. The Devourers were contained as long as we maintained order. Now they're awakening, and your chaos has given them the opening they needed. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying the Federation knew about this? Dr. Bay nodded grimly. I've been analyzing the data Captain O brought us. The Federation has known about the Devourers for centuries. The Void Surge wasn't random. It was a probe, testing our defenses. When they saw the galaxy responding with unity instead of fear, they decided to emerge fully. So by saving the Outer Rim worlds, we've triggered a larger invasion? No, said Song of Morning Light, the Vellani leader. His crystalline features reflected the lights of Haven's technology in complex patterns. By saving each other, we've shown them that this galaxy is worth defending. The Devourers have always existed. Now they know we won't go quietly. Over the following weeks, as the Devourer fleet approached, Haven became the center of the galaxy's desperate defense preparations. Ships arrived daily, not just from the species they had rescued, but from across the galaxy. Word had spread that there was a place where all beings were welcome, where differences were celebrated instead of feared. Warrior Chief Pak Hyon-U worked with Borak tactical specialists to train mixed-species defense forces. The training was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of trying to make everyone fight the same way, they developed tactics that used each species' unique strengths. The key is coordination, not uniformity, Pak explained to a group of new volunteers. Humans provide innovation and adaptability. Cathera give us energy manipulation. Borak offers strength and endurance. Shimari provide telepathic communication that can't be jammed. Vellani, crystal technology enhances everything. Together, we're stronger than any pure species force. Engineer Yoon had been working frantically to upgrade Haven's defenses. The station now bristled with hybrid technology that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Shield generators powered by Cathara energy, strengthened by Vellani harmonics, and controlled by human innovation, created protective barriers stronger than anything previously imagined. The beautiful thing about our technology, Yoon explained, to visiting engineers, is that it gets better when different systems work together. Devourer technology seems to be the opposite. It consumes and destroys to grow stronger. We build by creating, they build by consuming. But even as Haven grew in strength, disturbing news arrived from the galaxy's core. The Federation worlds were falling one by one to Devourer attacks. Their advanced technology, which had made them feel superior to primitive species, proved useless against enemies who could absorb and turn any energy weapon against them. Captain O brought the worst. News of all. The Federation Council is discussing surrender terms. They're considering offering the Devourers control of half the galaxy in exchange for being allowed to exist as servants. Lee felt sick. They would really abandon half the galaxy to save themselves? The elder species are terrified. They've never faced anything that could threaten their supremacy. Some council members are actually blaming us, saying that if we hadn't disrupted galactic order, the Devourers would have stayed sleeping. Dr. Nam, who had been treating refugees from the core worlds, shook her head in disgust. So they're saying, we should have let millions die to avoid waking up a bigger threat. That's not protection. That's cowardice. The Devourer probe ships reached the Outer Rim first. these smaller vessels, each still larger than a Federation battleship, began testing Haven's defenses. What they found surprised them. Archkeeper Yu J. Huan, Haven's chief historian, had been researching ancient records from a dozen different species. "I found something important," he announced during an emergency council meeting. "The Devourers have been defeated before." He activated holographic displays showing ancient star charts and historical records. About 10 million years ago, there was a coalition called the Unity of Lights. Dozens of species working together just like us. They found a way to defeat the Devourers and force them into hibernation. "How?" asked Council Leader Shin. "I'm still piecing it together, but it wasn't about superior technology or firepower. It was about something the Devourers couldn't understand or absorb, the power of willing cooperation between different forms of life." Strike Leader Moon Bo-Ra, who commanded Haven's fighter squadrons, studied the tactical implications. "So our diversity isn't just making us stronger. It's something they literally can't comprehend?" "Exactly. The Devourers evolved to dominate and consume. They understand hierarchy, fear, and submission, but voluntary cooperation between equals? That's alien to them." The theory was tested when the first major Devourer attack came. 3 massive ships, each the size of a small moon, approached Haven with weapons that could crack planets. The stations, inhabitants, over 2 million beings from 30 different species, prepared to defend their home. But the defense didn't look like any battle in galactic history. Instead of rigid formations and predetermined tactics, it was a flowing dance of cooperation. Kithara energy beings boosted human weapons beyond their normal capacity. Vellani crystal technology created harmonic shields that actually grew stronger. Under attack, Borak warriors provided raw courage that inspired everyone around them. Shimari telepaths coordinated movements with perfect precision. Strategist An Kyung-ho watched the battle from Haven's command center, amazed by what he was seeing. "They can't adapt to us," he realized. "Every time they try to counter one of our tactics, we change to something completely different. They're used to fighting species that have one way of doing things. We have 30 different ways, all working together." The Devourer ships were forced to retreat, something that hadn't happened in millions of years. As they fled, they broadcast a message across all frequencies. Not in any language, but in pure emotion, confusion, frustration, and for the first time in their existence, something that might have been fear. But victory came with a price. Long-range sensors detected the main Devourer fleet changing course, heading directly for Haven. Hundreds of ships, each carrying the accumulated power of consumed civilizations. "They're not just coming to destroy us," Dr. Bay reported grimly. "They're coming to study us. We've become a problem they need to solve." As the massive enemy fleet approached, messages began arriving from across the galaxy. The Federation core, worlds, seeing Haven's success, were finally asking for help. Independent species that had remained neutral were offering to join the alliance. Even some of the elder species who had always considered themselves superior were swallowing their pride and requesting admission to the Unity. Council Leader Shin stood before the assembled representatives of over 50 species. "Friends, we face the greatest threat in galactic history. But we also represent something that's never existed before. A true unity based on choice, not conquest." Song of Morning Light's crystalline form chimed with harmonious tones. "The Devourers consume worlds to grow stronger. We protect worlds and grow stronger. They are a force of destruction. We are a force of creation." Warrior Chief Pak raised his hand. "Then let's show them what creation can do when it fights back." Outside Haven's windows, the stars themselves seemed to be watching as 2 philosophies prepared for the ultimate confrontation. On one side stood the Devourers, ancient, powerful, united in their hunger to consume and dominate. On the other, Stowe, the Devourer Prime, was ancient beyond measure, older than most stars in the galaxy. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of millions of consumed civilizations, echoing with the screams of worlds that no longer existed. Creatures of disorder, the voice boomed across all frequencies, reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. "You have disrupted the natural order. You mix what should remain separate. You preserve what should be consumed. This ends now. On Haven Station, the Emergency Council was meeting in the Great Hall. Representatives from over 60 species sat together, something that would have been impossible just months ago. The diversity was staggering. Crystalline Villani next to rocky Borak, energy-based Kithara alongside plant-like Shamari, and dozens of others that the Federation had once dismissed as unimportant. Translation is difficult, reported Dr. Park, who had become the galaxy's expert on devourer communication. Their language is based on dominance concepts that most species don't have words for, but the basic message is clear: submit or be consumed. Captain Lee studied the tactical displays showing the approaching devourer fleet. 300 massive ships, each one carrying technology accumulated from millions of years of conquest. What's our fleet strength? 437 ships from 58 species, reported Admiral Kim, who had arrived with the official human fleet. But Captain, most of these are civilian vessels that were never designed for combat. Numbers. Don't tell the whole story, interrupted Warrior Chief Pack. Half the Federation's most advanced battleships have already been defeated by the Devourers. Our strength isn't in our weapons, it's in our unity. Elder Quan In Su, the oldest human in the fleet, had been studying historical records with Archkeeper Yu. I found more information about the ancient unity of lights, he announced. They didn't defeat the Devourers with superior firepower. They used something called a consciousness resonance field. What does that mean? Asked Council Leader Shin. From what I can understand, they combined the mental patterns of multiple species into a single harmonic frequency. The Devourers couldn't absorb or understand it because it represented something completely alien to their nature: voluntary cooperation. Dr. Bay had been working with Shamari telepaths to understand the science behind this concept. It's theoretically possible, he said carefully. The Shamari have already shown us that different species' thoughts can resonate together. If we could amplify that effect, we could create a weapon that the Devourers literally cannot comprehend, finished Engineer Yoon excitedly. Not because it's too advanced, but because it's based on principles they've never encountered. But the cost of such a weapon would be enormous. Volunteer Shin Yon Wu, a young pilot who had joined the rescue mission from its earliest days, studied the technical requirements. Someone would have to guide the consciousness field directly into the Devourer Collective. It would be a one-way trip. How do we know this would even work? Asked Captain O. The answer came from an unexpected source. Unity speaker Song Mi Kyung was a human Shamari hybrid, created when a dying Shamari had merged consciousness with a willing human volunteer to preserve both their memories. She existed as something that had never been seen before, a single being with the experiences of two species. I can feel them, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that no pure human or Shamari could produce. The Devourers. Their minds are like endless hunger with no purpose beyond consuming. They understand power, fear, domination. But love? Sacrifice? The choice to protect strangers? These concepts don't exist in their thinking. So, a consciousness field based on cooperation would be like a virus in their system, realized Dr. Park. Worse than a virus, Song replied. It would be like trying to process an equation that has no solution. Their minds would loop endlessly, trying to understand something that contradicts their basic nature. As they planned their desperate gambit, disturbing news arrived from across the galaxy. The Federation core worlds were falling one by one. Earth itself was under siege, with human colonies across the galaxy sending desperate calls for help. We can't wait any longer, Admiral Kim reported grimly. The Devourers are adapting to conventional tactics faster than we hoped. They've absorbed the technology from a dozen Federation fleets and are using it against us. The preparation for the consciousness resonance field required something unprecedented in galactic history. Representatives from every species in the Alliance would need to contribute their deepest memories, emotions, and experiences. Not just tactical knowledge, but the essence of what made each species unique. The Villani contributed their profound appreciation for beauty and harmony. The Borak offered their unshakable sense of honor and duty. The Kithara shared their understanding of energy as a living force. The Shamari provided their deep empathy and connection to all life. Humans added their stubborn refusal to abandon. anyone in need. Dozens of other species contributed their own unique perspectives. The Delphs' patient wisdom, the Chthons' deep understanding of hidden places, the Zephyrians' joy in movement and freedom. Each addition made the consciousness field more complex and more alien to devourer understanding. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Nam, monitoring the field's development. "I can feel all of us in there, different but connected, like a song with dozens of harmonies that somehow all work together." But as the field took shape, the devourer fleet arrived at Haven. The battle began immediately, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the ordered formations that characterized Federation warfare, the Alliance fleet moved, like a living organism. Ships from different species supported each other instinctively, creating patterns of mutual protection that confused and frustrated the devourer commanders. "They keep trying to isolate and destroy individual ships," reported Strike Leader Moon from her fighter squadron. "But every time they focus on one target, 3 others move to protect it. They don't understand our tactics because we don't have tactics. We have trust." The Devourer ships were massive and powerful, but they had been designed to fight against conventional military forces. The Alliance fleet included converted cargo ships, scientific vessels, and even luxury transports. None of them should have been effective in combat, but they were fighting for their homes and their friends. "Devourer flagship is charging its primary weapon," warned strategist An. "That beam could crack a planet. All ships, evasive maneuvers," ordered Admiral Kim. But instead of scattering in panic, the Alliance fleet did something remarkable. They moved to shield each other, creating layered defensive patterns where the strongest ships protected the weakest. When the Devourer beam fired, it struck a wall of overlapping shields powered by 6 different species technology. The beam scattered harmlessly, its energy absorbed and redirected by the cooperative defense grid. "Impossible," came a transmission from the Devourer flagship. "These tactics violate optimal efficiency principles." "That's the point," Admiral Kim transmitted back. "We're not trying to be efficient. We're trying to be effective." As the space battle raged, the consciousness field reached critical mass. 67 species had contributed their thoughts, memories, and dreams to create something that had never existed before. A collective consciousness based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced unity. Volunteer Xinyon Wu prepared for her final mission. Her fighter had been modified to carry the consciousness field generator, and she would need to fly it directly into the heart of the Devourer formation. "I want everyone to know," she broadcast to the fleet. "This has been the honor of my life. We started by trying to save the Villani, and now we're saving the galaxy. If this works, remember us not as the species that started the fight, but as the alliance that finished it." Her fighter launched, protected by an escort of ships from a dozen species. They fought their way through the Devourer formation, losing escorts one by one until only Shin's fighter remained. "Consciousness field is stable," she reported as enemy fire damaged her ship's systems. "Beginning transmission now." The field erupted from her fighter like a wave of pure thought and emotion. It struck the Devourer fleet and began spreading through their collective consciousness. For beings that had existed for millions of years, consuming and dominating without question, the concepts in the field were incomprehensible. The Devourers experienced, for the first time, the memory of a mother protecting her child, the feeling of strangers helping each other for no personal gain, the joy of creating something beautiful that others could enjoy, the satisfaction of working together to solve problems that no individual could handle alone. Their ancient minds, built for conquest and consumption, couldn't process these concepts. Ship after ship went silent as Devourer consciousness loops crashed, trying endlessly to understand ideas that contradicted their fundamental nature. But the field's effect went beyond just confusion. It showed the Devourers what they had destroyed. Millions of unique civilizations with their own art, music, philosophy, and dreams. For beings that had never considered the value of what they consumed, seeing the galaxy through the eyes of its inhabitants was devastating. The Devourer Prime's final transmission was barely coherent. What have we? The music, the colors. We destroyed. We desti. 5 years had passed since the defeat of the Devourers, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Admiral Lee Dong-woo stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station, watching ships from hundreds of worlds dock peacefully at the massive space station that had become the heart of galactic civilization. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human adaptive technology blended with Vellani crystal harmonics, Cathara energy manipulation, and innovations from dozens of other species. Instead of the cold, efficient designs that had characterized Federation architecture, New Haven was beautiful, its corridors flowing like organic structures, its walls alive with art from every known species. "Admiral, we're receiving the morning reports," said Communications Officer Lim Ga-young, who had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Communication. Her department now employed translators from over 200 species, making New Haven truly accessible to all galactic life. Lee smiled at the title. He had been elected Admiral of the Alliance Defense Fleet by representatives from every member world, a far cry from the hierarchical appointment system the Federation had used. "What's the good news today? The Rigel system has officially joined the Alliance. That makes our membership 347 systems with over 800 species represented." Lim paused, checking her datapad. "Oh, and the Vellani Cultural Exchange Program has received applications from 63 species wanting to learn their harmonic arts." Lee felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Song of Morning Light, the Vellani leader who had become one of his closest friends, had proposed the cultural exchange as a way to share their people's gifts with the galaxy. The idea had been so successful that similar programs now existed for dozens of species. "Any problems to address?" "Minor ones, sir. The Zephyrian cloud dancers are having trouble adapting to solid surface colonies, but Engineer Yoon thinks he can modify some orbital habitats for them. And there's a dispute between two mining companies in the Kepler sector, but Mediator Shin says it's just a matter of resource allocation." The fact that such small problems were newsworthy showed how much had changed. During the Federation era, the daily reports had been filled with rebellions, trade wars, and territorial disputes. The Alliance's emphasis on cooperation and mutual benefit had eliminated most sources of conflict. Dr. Park So-young approached, now carrying the title of Director of Xenological Studies. "Admiral, I have the final report on the Devourer Rehabilitation Project." Lee's expression became serious. This was one of the Alliance's most controversial decisions, attempting to help the surviving Devourers understand and adapt to cooperative existence rather than simply destroying them. "How are they progressing?" "Better than we hoped. The consciousness field didn't just confuse them. It gave them access to concepts they had never experienced. 3 of the surviving ships have requested permission to join Alliance humanitarian missions. They want to help rebuild worlds they once destroyed. It was an amazing transformation. The ancient beings that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years were slowly learning what it meant to create rather than consume. The process was difficult and sometimes painful, but it represented the Alliance's core principle, that every being deserved a chance to choose cooperation over domination. "Have any of the member species objected to Devourer participation?" "Some initial resistance, which is understandable given the history. But the Shimari telepaths confirmed that the desire for redemption is genuine. And honestly, their advanced technology is helping us solve problems we never could have handled alone." Lee nodded. The Alliance had learned that diversity wasn't just morally right, it was practically superior. Problems that seemed impossible to one species were often simple to another. The combined knowledge and capabilities of hundreds of species were accomplishing things that no single civilization could imagine. "Admiral, there's something else," Dr. Park continued. "Long-range sensors have detected artificial signals from beyond the galactic rim. Very faint, but definitely technological." Lee felt a familiar tingle of excitement. "New species?" "That's what we think. The signals suggest at least 3 different technological signatures, possibly more." Captain Kang Woo-young, now Director of Exploration, joined the conversation. "Sir, I'd like to request permission to organize a first contact mission. We've learned a lot about approaching unknown species since the early days." The early days. Lee remembered the chaos and fear when humans had first encountered the Vellani, neither side sure whether the other could be trusted. Now, the Alliance had developed sophisticated protocols for first contact that emphasized patience, respect, and the assumption that new species wanted peace rather than war. Approved. but take representatives from at least a dozen species. If we've learned anything, it's that diversity makes us stronger." As his staff dispersed to handle their duties, Lee remained on the observation deck, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple decision: the refusal to abandon innocent beings who needed help. That choice had grown into a movement that transformed the galaxy. Unity speaker Song Mi Kyung approached, her hybrid nature allowing her to move silently through the station's corridors. "Contemplating the past, Admiral?" "And the future. Sometimes I can barely believe how far we've come." "The transformation hasn't been without cost," Song reminded him. "We lost good people along the way. Shin Yonwoo still struggles with the after-effects of the consciousness field. Whole planets bear scars from the Devourer attacks." Lee nodded sadly. "But those people didn't die for nothing. They died so that beings like the Vellani could create art, so that the Kithen could mine in peace, so that the Shimari could tend their gardens. They died so that every species could have a voice, and so that humans could show the galaxy what they were truly capable of," Song added. "Your species has always been remarkable, but I don't think even you understood your potential until you were tested." A chime sounded through the station, the daily ceremony of remembrance for those lost in the struggle. Throughout New Haven, beings from hundreds of species paused in their activities to honor the memory of all who had sacrificed for the dream of galactic unity. Lee thought about Captain Shin Yonwoo, who had delivered the consciousness field that defeated the Devourers. She was alive but forever changed, her mind touched by the thoughts of every species in the Alliance. She claimed it was worth it, that experiencing the galaxy through so many different perspectives had shown her beauty beyond imagination. He thought about Ambassador Choi, who had died in the final battle against the Federation's attempt to maintain power through force. His last words had been, "Tell them the dream was worth it." He thought about the millions of beings who had never lived to see the galaxy reborn, Vellani artists, Borak warriors, human explorers, and countless others who had believed that cooperation was stronger than domination. "Admiral," called Engineer Yoon from across the deck, "you should see this." Lee joined him at a display showing the latest construction reports. Across the galaxy, former Federation military bases were being converted into research stations, cultural centers, and humanitarian outposts. Weapons factories were being retooled to produce ships for exploration and aid rather than conquest. The old Federation had 12,000 warships and could barely maintain peace, Yoon observed. "We have 3,000 multi-purpose vessels and haven't had a major conflict in 2 years. It's amazing what happens when people feel heard rather than oppressed," Lee replied. Dr. Nam approached with a smile on her face. "Admiral, I have news that will make your day. The Outer Rim Development Project has exceeded all expectations. The worlds we saved from the Devourers aren't just surviving, they're thriving. Vellani Prime is now a major center for artistic education. The Delph water farms are feeding 6 systems. The Kithen mines are producing rare elements that are revolutionizing technology across the Alliance." Lee felt a deep satisfaction. The Federation had dismissed these worlds as unimportable, not worth saving. But given the chance to contribute freely rather than being exploited, they had become some of the Alliance's most valued members. "There's more," Dr. Nam continued. "Birth rates across all species are up significantly. Apparently, when people feel safe and valued, they're more willing to bring children into the world." It was a simple statistic, but it spoke volumes about what the Alliance had accomplished. In a galaxy where beings felt secure and respected, life flourished. As the day cycle shifted to evening on the station, Lee made his way to the Memorial Garden, a beautiful space where representatives from every Alliance species had contributed. Plants, sculptures, and art, honoring those who had died for the dream of unity. At the center of the garden stood a simple monument with names in hundreds of languages, but the inscription at the top was in clear, simple text that every Alliance citizen could read. They chose to save strangers, and in doing so, saved us all. Elder Kwan In-Su was already there, as he was every evening. Despite his age, he had insisted on remaining active in the Alliance government, claiming that the young needed the wisdom of those who remembered the dark times. "Another successful day in paradise?" the old man asked with a gentle smile. "Getting close," Lee replied. We received fee.